Hey there. Let me introduce myself. My name's not in your Bibles. My name's unimportant. What is important is the function I did for Israel. I was a spy for Israel. Now, let me explain a little bit. First off, this is a story really about faith and believing in the promises of Yahweh. And we're gonna talk about a little bit back in ancient history. So it's way before my time even. When Yahweh picked a man named Abram and told him, "I want you to leave your family, your country, and just go, and I will give you another land." And so that's what Yahweh did. He promised this Abram and his descendants this other place. It was a land of Canaan, but then we, the Israelites, we started calling it the Promised Land, okay? And anyway, so the Israelites, we ended up in the time of Joseph going to Egypt because of the famine, and we ended up staying in Egypt for 400 some years, and then we were oppressed in slavery and crying out to Yahweh to help, and Yahweh tapped an Israelite named Moses. You've probably heard of him. And Moses was reluctant to be the one to lead the Israelites out of Egypt, but Yahweh convinced him by a series of miracles. I mean, it started out with a burning bush that really didn't burn, and then it progressed there to, a staff that Moses had. He could throw it down and it turned into a snake, and he could put his hand in his shirt, cloak, and pull it out, and he'd be leprous, and then he'd come back and he'd be whole again. And so Moses believed in Yahweh and believed in his promises. And then there's this big, long fight with Pharaoh, and I'm not going to go into that whole thing, but it was a verbal fight, but it was really a fight between Yahweh and the gods of Egypt, and Yahweh won because he's the chief god. So anyway, Moses, he ended up leading the Israelites out of Egypt. And these Israelites, they were a complaining, grumbling lot. I don't know if you know people like that or not. I do. But anyway, this group, it seemed like no matter what happened, they were going to complain about stuff. So they were already complaining about how they didn't have food and all that kind of stuff, and the Egyptians were chasing them down. And so Yahweh parted the Red Sea, and they were able to pass through. And then the Red Sea fell in on top of the Egyptians. No more Egyptians chasing them. But then it just kept going on and on and on. All these times when Yahweh would step through and come up with some kind of a miracle. Like they needed food in the wilderness, so God sends manna. And then they were complaining they were tired of the manna. They wanted meat, so God sends quail. Then there are other times that they couldn't have enough water. I mean, they're in the desert. And so God has a rock that opens up, and water comes out. There's a time when there's poisonous snakes, and God saved them from that. So you've got this whole series of time where Yahweh is showing them, hey, I called you out there. I'm going to be faithful. All you have to do is be obedient and faithful to me. Well, that pattern of dysfunction, that pattern of disloyalty even to Yahweh, this pattern of, well, you got to show me once again or I'm not going to believe, that just kept going on. So, all right. So now, 40 years before my time, Moses and the Israelites, they're looking at the Promised Land. So let's say that's the Promised Land, and here's the Jordan River across here, and they're looking at the Promised Land, and they send in 12 spies to check out the Promised Land. Now, I'm not bitter or anything, but those 12 spies, their names are recorded in your Bible, not like mine. But of those 12 spies, only 2 of them had faith that Yahweh was going to live up to his promise. Now, our commander, our leader, Joshua, he was one of those spies. And those 2 came back and said, yeah, Yahweh's going to give us the land. But the other 10 said, oh, no, we don't have enough manpower to take over the land. Well, it wasn't supposed to be about manpower. It was supposed to be about our God Yahweh is more powerful than any other God out there. But, those Israelites, I wasn't alive yet. Those Israelites, they disobeyed. They didn't have enough faith. And so Yahweh said, okay, you know what? You're all going to wander around the wilderness for the next 40 years until those people that disobeyed, those people that had no faith, until they die off. My father would have been one of those that died off. I was born then during that 40-year walking around wandering in the wilderness. But now Moses is gone, Joshua's our leader, and now it's time to go in and possess the land, the promised land that God had promised to our ancestors. So again, let's just assume this is the Jordan River. It's a lot deeper and wider than this. It's so deep and wide it's hard to get across. But let's say that separates me from the promised land. So we're all over here, and this time we decide, you know what? Let's send in 2 spies, but not to figure out, can we take the land? No, we had faith, but let's send in 2 spies so that we can judge what's the battlements, what are the people like, what do we need to do to overcome? Because, we're thinking we're the ones that are going to have to fight this battle, and as you can see as I tell my story, that was not really what happened. It was going to be Yahweh's battle. But we didn't know that. So we send in these 2 spies. I'm one of them. My buddy, he comes with me. So we cross the Jordan. A lot harder than that, but we cross the Jordan. Now we're in the promised land, and there's this big city there. It's entrenched. It's got walls all the way around it. And when I say walls, there's an inner wall, about 30 feet of space. Sometimes it's filled with dirt. Sometimes it's open. And then an outer wall. These walls, they're tens of feet high. They're way up there. And it surrounds the whole city. Well, we see that. The city feels safe. So, people can go in. Foreigners can go in. So me and my buddy, we go in. And again, we're just mingling among the people. We went to a house and inn where there's a lot of people there. And we're just trying to figure out, do they even know there's a force of Israelites across the Jordan? If so, are they scared? Are they confident? What's the mood of the people? Again, we're just trying to look at that. We're looking at the battlements and the walls and trying to make our plans, again, thinking that it's going to be our plans that's going to take this land. Well, while we're in there, we suddenly, we hear the people start to talk amongst themselves, and they're talking about, well, you know what? The king of Jericho knows there's spies in the land. He's sending men to find the foreigners. We're like, oh, nuts. That's us. Shoot. What are we going to do? And before we can do much, we see the men coming up to the house, and we're thinking, oh, shoot, we're in trouble now. Where do we run? And then the lady in charge of the house, her name's Rahab, she grabs us. And she says, follow me. And she takes us up to the roof, and there's flax laying out there drying it. She hides us under the flax. And frankly, I couldn't believe this was happening. Why was she caring for us? Now, there was this, in that culture, it's called like a stranger culture. And what that means is when a stranger comes to your house and wants to, have food and hospitality, you offer that, and sometimes you have to defend them with your life. And I'm thinking, well, is it that or not? And we didn't know, but we weren't going to object, so we hide underneath this flax up on the roof, and we're just hoping that the men go away. We're hoping that Yahweh's going to be true to his promise to us. But the men don't go away, and we can hear them downstairs, and they're yelling out, okay, we're here for the foreigners. We know they're in the house here, and we want to take them, And we're thinking, oh, man, this is going to be torture and death, and, we want to believe in Yahweh, but it's hard to know how this is all going to work out for us personally. Well, all of a sudden, we hear Rahab talking to him. And she's saying, oh, yeah, they were here. We didn't know they were, foreigners you were looking for. They left. I saw them go out the city gate. If you hurry after them, you'll be able to find them out there. And evidently, the men leave. Because pretty soon, she's coming up the steps, and we're thinking, that was her chance to give us up, maybe get a reward. But instead, she lied for us. We were floored. And then, was that being nice to strangers stuff? And I'm just trying to think, man, do I care enough about strangers that I would lie for them? Do I care enough for strangers? It didn't make any sense. We just weren't sure why she would be lying for us. Well, she comes up the steps, and she talks to us, and she says, I've heard about your God and what he's done across the Jordan, how he's vanquished people. And she says, we're all scared about you people coming. And then she says this curious faith statement. She lets us know, I believe that Yahweh is the God of the heavens above and of the earth below. And we're stunned. Wow, that's our God. He's able to reach out and touch the enemy, touch somebody in the enemy camp, and convert them over to his cause. That's our God. But that's also this faith of Rahab. I mean, she is risking everything, her family's life, her own life, to save us. And we're trying to think, well, what does all this mean? And then she pitches a deal to us. She says, your lives for my life. Your lives for my family's lives. She wants us to promise that when we come and invade, we won't kill her and her family. Okay, the faith of that. She believes that, we're going to invade and we're going to win because we're following the one God of all gods, Yahweh. And so she's got that kind of faith. But I had to think, do I have faith enough to risk it all like she's doing? Wow. That's the God we serve. So we said to her, that deal's good, you help us escape here and we'll make sure that, we take care of you and your family when we do invade. Because we have faith that Yahweh's going to step in and we are going to make it. The Israelites are going to live in this promised land. So she actually, those two, inner wall and outer wall, she lives in between the two walls. So she's got a window to the wall that's on the outside. And she says, okay, I'll let you down the window. Those men are probably going to search outside by the river for the next 3 days waiting for you. Don't go by the river. Just spend some time out there. And when you see them go back into the city, then you'll be free to go. So we said, okay, but here, we had a scarlet cord. We said, here, you tie this in your window. Because that way, when we come back, we'll know whoever's in the room with the scarlet window, we won't harm you or your people, whoever you've got in there. So she took the scarlet cord, she tied it to her window, she let us out on a rope. We hid out for 3 days. Sure enough, we saw the searchers come back. They were going back into the city. And we're thinking, okay, this is working out. And you had to think, okay, the faith of Rahab, the faith we have, but it's working out because we're just following the one true God. And his promises are sure. Okay, so we head back across the Jordan. We're back at the Israelite camp now. We start telling Joshua, this is everything that happened. Well, Joshua, he wanted to invade 40 years ago and couldn't. He's all for the plan. He says, okay, that's fine then. Now we know what's going on. And basically there's 3 things that have to happen though. The first is we have to get all of us across the huge Jordan over on the other side. And I wouldn't have believed this except I saw it with my own eyes. And this is what happened then. We were always carrying this ark. It's this Ark of the Covenant is what it's called. It's this strange box it holds some relics from Moses' time. And it also holds Yahweh's power and glory. Somehow, I don't understand how all that works. I just know this is this special holy box. Well, we had some men that were carrying the box. Normally, you can't even touch it. You can touch the poles, not the box. And when the men who were carrying the box stepped into the Jordan, the water stopped flowing. Matter of fact, it stood up. And all of a sudden, as they walked into the Jordan, there's water on both sides, but it's not moving. And now all the people, and there's a lot of us, let me tell you, we all passed through. And we are all beheld this miracle. That was the first thing that happened. When we got to the other side then, and we ended up getting some stones from the riverbed, and we made a memorial because we wanted to remember this was showing us God delivered us from Egypt and brought us into that land. And the promise that he said, you will have this land. It is yours. All you got to do is have faith in me and obey me. So we put this memorial up. That was the first thing. The second thing we did then, we decided, okay, we need to recommit our lives. So we had several days where we recommitted our covenant with Yahweh, the one true God. Okay, that's two things. Then the third thing, and again, this was bizarre. It's even hard to imagine, but I saw it with my own eyes, and this is what happened. Again, we're looking at the battlements, looking at Jericho. So Joshua, our leader, he's looking at that, and all of a sudden, in front of him, there appears this man being with a drawn sword. And Joshua's like, hey, are you our friend or are you with our enemies? And the man says, no. What a strange answer. It's always no. Well, we didn't even know what that meant. Does that mean he's not our friend or he's not with our enemy? Or does it mean that was the wrong question? It's not whether you're with us or with the enemy. We weren't sure what it all meant. But then he said, I am the commander of Yahweh's army. Now I have come. Oh boy. Joshua put his head down on the ground and said, what do you want me to do? And he said, you're standing on holy ground. Take off your sandals. Do you realize? That's the same phrase that Moses heard decades before from the burning bush. We were in the presence of Yahweh's commanding officer. We were Yahweh's people, his chosen people. We were in a covenant relationship with the one true God of the universe. And he was saying, I'm here with you. Suddenly we realized this really wasn't going to be our battle. It was going to be Yahweh's battle. And he'd already told us that earlier. He said he was going to go through there and invade and take care of everything. All we had to do was follow and be loyal. Wow. That was amazing. Well, after that, then, Joshua started delivering what the battle plan was to take Jericho. And again, I don't know if this came directly from the commander of Yahweh's army or it came from Yahweh himself. I don't know. But here's the plan, and it's not like any other plan we'd ever heard of. Matter of fact, it didn't even matter. It shouldn't even work when you really get down to it, but here was the plan. We were supposed to go over to Jericho, and all the fighting men were supposed to march around the city one time. You're going to do this for 6 days, but do it one time around the city. At the same time, the ark is going to be carried, by priests around the city one time. And then there's other priests who have trumpets, horns. They're going to be blowing their horns. All the rest are supposed to be quiet. And you're going to march around, blow the horns all at one time. Do that for 6 straight days. Same thing, all the time. No noise, except for the horns. But on the 7th day, this is what we're supposed to do. Now, we do that same thing, but now we march around it 7 times. And at the end of the 7th time, then we're supposed to give a shout. And the walls, these great, big, huge structures, they're supposed to tumble down, and we're supposed to go in and sack the city. Come on. There's no way that plan should work. So what this means is, if we're going to follow this plan, we have to have faith in Yahweh, because that's the only way the plan works, is if it's Yahweh's doing. Because if all this works, it doesn't mean that we're stronger than the people inside. It means that our God, Yahweh, is stronger than their God, whatever God that is. Well, we decide, okay, that's what we're going to do. We're going to follow that plan because we believe and we have faith this time. The faith we have this time is totally different than 40 years ago. And we think we finally are understanding a little bit more about this. It's Yahweh's battle, not ours. Well, believe it or not, that's exactly how it turned out. We're marching around there. We know what window has the scarlet cord on it, so we're thinking, okay, there's a bunch of us. We're going to pay attention to where that's at and make sure whoever's on that side when the walls come down, you got to go in there and save the people in there. Rahab was counting on us. Rahab was counting on Yahweh, her faith. We don't want to let them down at all. So we march around there the 6 times. The 7th time, there's a lot of excitement thinking, okay, this is it. And finally, we get to the point where we can all shout. Oh, my goodness, the noise as all the shouting, all the trumpets, and then the earth shaking as the walls come tumbling down, these heavy walls. And it's like, this is it, it worked. And we went in there, and a bunch of us, again, we were looking specifically right for that spot, and we found it. We were right there. We go in, we grab Rahab and her family, and we pull them out, and they're saved. And we sack the city. So it was our faith in Yahweh that made the difference. And it was Yahweh that made the difference, not us. We didn't do it on our own scheming and planning. It was all on Yahweh. Here's a neat thing that happened, though, too. We'd always had in our tradition that because we'd been strangers in the land, we're supposed to take care of the stranger. They call them aliens in the land or strangers. That's what Rahab did. She invited us in and hid us and saved us. But now it was our turn. We invited her into our community. And we wanted her to be a part of us. She married an Israelite, and she even had a child that probably no one you ever heard of. The name was Boaz. That was her child's name. You probably never heard of Boaz. But that is just what's so spectacular. It's the faith in God and recognizing no matter if it makes sense or not, I've got to follow His plan. I have to have that faith. I have to be able to risk for Him. And that's what I learned. The spy with no name, all I got now is a scarlet cord and a lot of memories about what faith brings. I'm going to have a prayer. At the end of that prayer, you can free to be dismissed, or if you want to come up for prayer, I'd like to have you do that. Please bow with me. Yahweh, God of all creation, blessed be your name. Blessed be your power. May you speak to us and through us to the world. Maybe we be inviting of the strangers in our midst and invite them into your kingdom work, into your family. Give us the faith to live for you in the midst of a world that doesn't understand that. Give us that faith, Lord. Bless us with your presence. Bless us to be able to risk everything we have for you, because life is all about you and the relationship we have with you. Thank you for your healing touch. Thank you for your power. We just pray all this in your name. Amen. Go in peace.